probably. All this stuff there for a reason. Check this out. This is a Mach Stone RC rock crawler, if I can catch up with it. This thing is pretty cool, because it'll go anywhere. I tried it out yesterday on a rock garden. It climbed the rock garden pretty good. Blockers front and rear. Unfortunately, it's muddy out here today, so got another project here that we're going to work on. Today is the day we're going to put some spark plugs in the Mach. The original owner told me that it's been a while, he said, since he did a tune-up on it. I don't know exactly what a while means. He didn't give me a mileage figure. He might not even remember what the mileage figure would be, but in any case, I'm going to try and do some spark plugs on here today. I got the Motorcraft 433s, which is what everybody said was the stock OE plug on this car. So I bought a set of those today at the auto parts store. I think they were about 25 bucks. And I got those right here. Motorcraft 433s. And they had them all in stock, which was cool. So I'm going to pop those in here. Thing about doing this job on the Mach 1 is a little bit more complicated than the GT, because obviously you got to take all this stuff off over here. Well, come to think of it, I believe I had to take this off on my GT also. So it may not really be more complicated necessarily. And then one thing you do have on the Mach is this cover that has to come off so that you can get to the coil packs and the plugs down in there. So make sure you got that with you before you do the job. Alright, now here's some tools. I don't know if you can see down in here, this is a spark plug socket, and down inside of it is some material that holds the plug in place. It does two things. It helps you to pull the plug up out of the hole when you loosen them, and when you're tightening them, it gives you a little more stability and protects the porcelain on the plug from breaking, so make sure you have one of those. Looks like I'm going to need a long extension to get down in there, so thought I had one of those in here somewhere. I really need to organize my toolbox a little better. There we go. A long extension. I'm going to need an adapter, since that is 3/8 and my extension is a 1/2 inch. Got my little adapter there. And last thing you're going to need is a torque wrench, which I have right here, because on these engines you want to make sure you don't over tighten them. These things have aluminum heads in them, and I think the spec is anywhere between 11 and 13 foot-pounds, and you want to get it right on the money, because if you over tighten them you can strip the heads. They've only got a few threads in these. I think in 04, from what I read, they fixed that problem and gave them some more threads in the heads. But this is an 03 model, so I think it's still got the 4-thread heads in it, and it's easy to over torque these things, so I do not want to do that. So we're going to make sure that we use this torque wrench and the proper tools before we get going here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and move this air intake stuff out of the way, and then we'll pop these covers off and get down in there and see what we got. Alright, so I've got a 8mm here to take the air intake pieces off with, and you've also got a connection here for your PCV valve. You got to pop off, and it doesn't take very long to do this part. Let's see, I hope I said that, but I'm not 100% sure. There we go. Pops off just like that. Set that over here out of the way. And now you can see we have easy access to the cover over here on this side. Looks like these are not going to be very hard to do at all. This might actually end up being a little easier than the GT. Seems like on the GT these back ones were a little bit more covered up. So this doesn't look like it's going to be a real bad job at all. We'll go ahead and jerk those off. Alright, Alright, looks like the socket you're going to need for that cover is a 10 millimeter. Nice because the hood scoop right there has a nice little tray in it. Makes a good spot to lay your bolts while you're doing this part. And then I guess I'm going to have to grab a flat bladed screwdriver and pop that. Alright, so pop that cover off and there they are. Now obviously you've got these little plastic connectors for your coils. So you just put your thumb on this tab. Be very gentle with this. I've done a lot of these Fords that have some age on them, and this stuff gets really brittle over the years. So make sure you're very, very gentle with these things when you pop them off, because you don't want to break those. So that's the next thing I'll do, is disconnect these, and we'll pull the coil packs out. Alright, there's the first one. I always make sure that spring is still inside there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'll make sure that stays together and the spring stays inside the coil pack. I don't know if it's necessary or not, but what I like to do is keep these in order, the order they came out of the car. I guess it's probably not necessary at all because they're all the exact same part number, but just for giggles I like to keep stuff organized. So I'm going to make sure that I lay these down in the driveway in the order I take them out, so that I know what I'm doing here. Or some guys go ahead and do one plug at a time. Just put your new plug in, put the coil back in, do it all one plug at a time. I guess you could do that also. In fact, as I'm thinking about it here, that might be a good idea. So we'll do that. So I'm going to stick the socket down in there now and see if I can get that plug out. Fingers crossed, because if I strip one of these things, I'm going to cry. Alright, that was definitely finger tight. Definitely got a little bit of torque on it, but it feels like it's coming out okay. Car's got 128,000 miles on it, so it's going to be interesting to see which plug is actually in this car, because I'm assuming that it was serviced at least once in its lifetime, and if so, I wonder which plug the owner put back in here. There she is. Looks like it's a AGSF 32. Huh. I don't think the auto parts store even had a listing for that. I don't know if you can see that or not, but they do look a little bit worn. The electrode is kind of burned down a little bit. Yeah. Cool. I'm glad it came out okay. So I'll pop this new plug in and we'll just go in sequence here and get them all done. Now the question is, do I put any anti-seize on the threads or not? I think I'm going to put a little bit on there. Some guys say don't do it, some guys say do it. I think I'm going to kind of cut it in the middle and put just a little bit on the threads of the new one before I pop them in. So we'll see how it goes. Now, one thing I forgot to mention here is that the gap on these new plugs is supposed to be pre-set from factory. Well, actually that does have the same marking on it, AGSF32WM. So that's the exact plug that was in this car. That makes me feel good because I know I'm putting something in it that's going to work. But anyway, these things supposedly are pre-gapped, but it's a good idea obviously to check the gap, and I do have a tool for that, so I'm going to go check the gap on these. I think 55, somewhere between 53 and 57 is the spec. I'm going to probably make sure they're at least 55, right in that ballpark, right in the sweet spot would be good. And we'll start putting them back in. Alright, so I got my tool here, and check this thing. Let's see here. Learn how to read it. So right in here is where it should be gapped to. And looks like this one is about 53. So that's pretty much right on the money. Kind of on the low end of the scale there, but that's close enough. It's in spec is the main thing. It's in spec, so I'll go ahead and pop this one in there. Put a little bit of antices on there and go ahead and pop it in, then we'll go through and check the other ones. All in all, seems like this is going to be an easy job compared to other ones I've done. Man, everything's right here for you. Gosh, if you've ever done like a 5.4 liter engine on a F-150 truck, that is a nightmare compared to this. Alright, we got this first one done, and man, when you put 12 foot-pounds on them, it doesn't feel like much. You'll think that it's not tight at all, but it is. That's where you got to stop at. I've done this before and I had good success with it. If you don't get them tight enough, they can actually blow out of there and hit the hood. If you get them too tight, you can strip the head out. So 12 foot-pounds, right on the money. Now we can go on down the chain here and do the rest of it. Something else that I'll mention here is that when you're taking these out, you want to try and keep your extension centered up in the hole the best you can. You don't want it to flop left, right, up and down against the side of the hole. You want to try and keep that extension perfectly straight, especially when you're putting the new plugs in. Otherwise you can crack the porcelain on there, and that's not a good thing. Don't want to do that. This engine's actually kind of dirty in here. There's that one. It looks about the same. It's not too bad. Not too bad, but it's definitely got some wear on it. Alright guys, so I got this job done just in time because it's getting dark out here. After all, it is January, so the sun sets pretty early, but the driver's side actually wasn't too bad. Passenger side wasn't too bad. This is one of the easier plug changes that I've done. Everything's actually right here where you can get to it, so that's cool. The 03s had an issue with the hood scoop where it was noisy, and apparently this one was never fixed. Listen. Hear that? So I think I read that the technical service bulletin called for some bushings up underneath of the scoop here where it mounts to be insulated with rubber grommets. So I guess I'll go to the store and buy some and put in there. Something I noticed while I was under hood. This is actually the first time I've been under the hood of this thing. I mean, I popped the hood and glanced at it the day I bought the car, but this is the first time I've really been under here checking things out. Something else that I did while I was in here is I took this silencer, as they call it, off the air box. A little rubber piece, you can see it laying there, that fits down in there and goes down into the fender, and the idea there is that it would draw colder air out of the fender, but as you can see there, it kind of necks down. So some guys claim that there's a little bit of a restriction there because it goes from being pretty fat down to being pretty not fat on this end where it goes into the fender. So I took this thing off and I noticed that the hood scoop, the air coming into the hood scoop just goes down into the air box and then on into the engine. It doesn't actually go into the scoop and then go down into the engine like on the old classic muscle cars. So while this is a functional scoop, it's not exactly, you know, what you're thinking of when you think of a functional air scoop. I mean, technically they're not lying about it, but the way it's set up here, I can't see where it would do a whole lot of good, because everything is just being rerouted back down here to this air box. So in my opinion, if you took this piece off and just left that open right there, and of course I took the silencer out so this is open, it would probably actually draw in more air and the flow would probably be smoother into the engine, to be honest. So that's something I might consider. But one thing I've noticed is that after looking at this setup, I don't see how a cold air intake kit, you know, they sell those things for $200 or $300. I don't see how it would do much more than what this setup is doing, especially if you took this snorkel off, because then your filter's right here, it's drawing air in directly, and the tube that goes up into the throttle body is really short anyway. So I might take this, what they call the milk jug, off here. It's just a resonator to keep the sound down, keep the noise levels down. I might take that off and plug that hole, and then it'll probably do just as well as a cold air intake kit, honestly. So instead of buying that, I may just leave this stock, do a couple of mods to it, let that go. I'll open up the exhaust and maybe put an aluminum drive shaft under it, free up a little bit of that spinning mass, and then we'll stick this thing on the rollers and just see where she's at, give us a baseline. Alright, so I think that's a good spot to quit for the day. It's getting kind of dark out here, so thanks for watching, guys. Sorry you're looking right at the light, but anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.